Yeah, I believe it's recording now. Yeah. Okay. So, so would such a person be valuable to Dell? You know, would Dell have any capabilities that would form a competitive, would give them a competitive advantage? It wouldn't, right? So, it has to meet at least these four criteria for a capability to be considered, value. Something that is good to build a competitive advantage. So competitive consequences focus on capabilities that yield competitive parity and either temporary or sustainable competitive advantage. So why is data so important for many companies now? What does data do? It could be market data, it could be sales data. Why is data security such a huge issue? If everybody shared their data with everyone, what really would happen?
There is, for example, European Union has a law of GDPR,
Mhm.
that's General Data Protection Regulation, because there have been scams where lakhs of employees' private information data has been leaked
Hmm.
from banks, credit cards, and it resulted in a lot of losses.
Okay, so this is on customer data. What about data of the organization? Sales data, cost data, employee headcount data, salary data. Why are these things important? From a strategic point of view, if you look at your competitors, last week we talked about how to find information on competitors, what are the ethical means of doing so, what is the unethical means of doing so. We talked about those, right? So data, for our purposes, can be considered as something that gives you a competitive advantage, right? Which is why you have cases of insider trading in on the stock market. um, are you guys familiar with the concept of insider trading? Anyone here who here does not understand insider trading? It's okay if you don't know. I don't expect everyone to know everything. I don't know everything. So do I assume that everyone knows what insider trading is?
Yeah, sir.
Okay. So what happens in insider trading is a certain piece of information is given to someone outside the company, and they make sort of purchase of shares, or they sell shares based on this information, right? Let's say that there is a huge product launch tomorrow, right? And the day before, someone says that the product that's supposed to be launched has this new feature, right? And because of that, the company is going to be really successful. So if that information is leaked to someone the day before, they have the ability to go and buy the shares of this company, and the next day when they wake up, the product is launched, and they will find that they made a nice profit because bought the company shares at one price. And now that the rest of the world knows that the company has launched this product that will make it super successful, the company shares go up, right? So let's take for the example, Cipla, right? They develop a COVID-19 what do you say, vaccine, right? What happens if this information is leaked? It gives, one, the advantage for their competitors to sort of try and steal that information, and two, the shareholders of Cipla, if they get to know this information, they will quickly buy more shares of Cipla. Okay, and this can work in both ways. Okay, so let's move on. Let's look at the value chain analysis. There's primary activities and there's support activities. Primary activities are those involved with the product's physical creation, sales, distribution to buyers, and service after the sale. So primary activities could be both in terms of products as well as service. So if you're offering a service, some sort of telecaller service, it could be that process as well. That is the primary activity. Then you have the support activities in a value chain, which is the activities which provide assistance for necessary for the primary activities to take place includes the firm's infrastructure, HRM, technology development, and procurement. Okay. So what happens is your primary activities and your secondary activities are what contribute to your margin. Okay. So in order to carry out your primary activities in a better way, you need to have a competitive advantage. Are you guys able to link primary activities with competitive advantage now? Okay, so I have a question that I will just put it out there. Um, for a firm to be to have a good competitive advantage, which one is more valuable? If they have a competitive advantage in the primary activities or in the support activities?
Primary activities.
Okay.
Primary activities.
Okay. Anybody who says support activities? Or anybody who says both?
Yeah, both I would say, because are important both.
Okay. Which one more?
Primary one is more, sir, because it contributes more to the revenue of the company, profitability of the company.
So that is something that contributes directly to the revenue generation of the company, right? So primary activities, if you have a competitive advantage, obviously it is more important than having a competitive advantage in any of the secondary activities. So the secondary activities, so let's say the firm infrastructure. Let's say the office is located or the factory is located very close to where most of the employees stay, right? So this is a competitive advantage because employees spend less time going back and forth from their houses, which means that they can get more work done, so forth. But is that really a strong driver of how much margin you can get? Not really, right?
It can have some kind of effect. For example, like
It will.
good
It will, for sure.
good human resource management, development, technology will result in overall good service and good operations and good logistics. So like that.
Definitely. So that's why I started by saying, both of them will have an impact on the value chain and how much margin a company can command. But the primary activities is where your focus should be to improve your competitive advantage. Right? That's where your competitive advantage comes, because that is where you can differentiate your company from the others. The other factors, it's fairly easy to copy. It's fairly easy to replicate a good human resource management. You can hire someone who's a good HR manager. You can hire someone who can develop technology. You can set up an R&D lab. You can procure your products from a cheaper source. So these are all easily replicable, right? So you remember the concept of entry barriers that we discussed as part of the 5 forces. These are all these secondary support activities have low entry barriers. Anyone with these secondary activities can compete actively in the market, as as long as they have the same primary activities. So any questions on the basic value chain?
No, sir.
Okay, so let's carry on. We'll talk about next outsourcing, the definition and why companies outsource, and the internal organization, how it's assessed and how these strategic decisions are made. So we'll come to outsourcing. So a term that's fairly well known to all of us at this point of time. Outsourcing has, in some cases, it's become a word that we don't like, because everything in a company where things are outsourced, people tend to lose jobs. That's the negative aspect of it. But in a company where some non-value add activities are outsourced, then the company becomes more profitable and each of the employees gets a bigger pay rise, because overall the company is more productive. That's the positive aspect of it. So the definition of outsourcing is purchase of a value creating activity from an external supplier. Okay. Again, any organizations, any industry and any organization that you'd like to take an example? someone who hasn't had a chance before, I'd like you to give a industry and organization. Any answers? Go ahead, please. I mean, it's not difficult to give an industry and a company that's associated with that industry. So I told you in the very first class that every class multiple times I will ask you for this, and I will need answers from you regarding an industry, an example of an industry that you think is interesting, and a company in that industry. Because if the examples come from you, explaining these concepts becomes easier.
For example, Swiss cheese are considered the best. So most of the time importing cheese from Switzerland.
Okay. No, Jaideep, I just want an industry and a company in that industry. When I say, please give me an example, these are the two things that I need. So an example would be food industry and Pizza Hut, things like that. Anyone else? Any industry that you might be interested in? Nothing? Okay. So I'll consider my own example of the food industry and Pizza Hut. So what Pizza Hut does is they focus on the value add activities, like or also called the value creating activities. Any activity that they feel that they can't add value, they will outsource it, right? They will start looking at how they can add value in that activity, or they will see how to outsource it so that they can buy the output of that activity. Okay, so things like making the pizza, to some extent making the sauce and cutting the vegetables, choosing what vegetables. These are activities that Pizza Hut is good at, right? These are activities where they add value to the process. They add value to the value chain. Things like making the flour from which the pizza dough, the pizza base is made, that is not a value added activity for them, right? They will still buy the flour from a company, they will mix the flour, they will make the dough. That is something that is a value add activity, because they've identified the best way to make a pizza dough, right? But which flour to once they decide which flour to buy, beyond that they will not go out and say, okay, I will manufacture the flour myself, right? So that would be an example of backward integration, another concept that we talked about in our previous classes. So unless they see that they can add some value in the process that comes before them or after them, they will not sort of venture into that activity because it doesn't create value for them, right? Why should they invest? In your own roles, you can analyze what are the things that you do and what are the things that are done for you as part of your role. So could be something like, let's say someone is a software programmer. There will be someone who will be a tester, right? So a software programmer will not add value by also testing the software code that he's written, right? He might find the same bugs that he wrote in the first place. So a software tester will add value, by using a fresh pair of eyes, a different software to analyze the code that a program is written. So for the software tester, it is a value add activity, and for a programmer, writing the code would be a value add activity. Okay. Do these examples seem sufficient? Do we need to talk a little bit more about outsourcing? Okay. Effective execution includes an increase in flexibility, risk mitigation, and capital investment reduction. So increase in flexibility, meaning Pizza Hut, if they reduce certain activities, then they can focus more on what they do better rather than non-value add activities where they're just wasting their time. Risk mitigation. So Pizza Hut doesn't bother delivering their pizzas because for them setting up their entire delivery network, hiring the guys, making sure the pizza order is taken properly and then delivered, that's a huge risk for them. They don't want to get into that. So they mitigate that risk by tying up with someone like Swiggy, and they outsource that part of the value chain. Okay, and capital investment reduction. So by reducing this sort of delivery network, they are reducing the amount that they are spending on their business, which means they're cutting down their costs, which means that their capital invested annually comes down, and they can use that capital to improve their value-added services. Their core competency of making pizzas, how to make the most tastiest, the most delicious pizzas is what they should focus on. So outsourcing is a trend that continues at a rapid pace. I will also come to the downside of outsourcing. Firms must outsource activities where they cannot create value or at a substantial disadvantage compared to competitors. All right. So another example that I'd like to take is, let's say a company that manufactures laptops. They start outsourcing some part of their components. Okay, so they start outsourcing their the motherboards. Right. So slowly, they start with just the chip, then the entire motherboard. Then they think of what is the software written. And they reach a certain stage where all they're doing is getting all of these things together and putting them together. They don't do any of the actual manufacturing themselves. Their core competency now becomes how to find the best components and assemble them in the best possible way. That becomes their core competency. And when such a thing happens, the entry barrier is lowered by quite a bit, right? So anyone with a sufficient amount of knowledge can figure out how to build the best laptops. If they have access to a certain brand of chips, a certain brand of motherboards, a certain brand of LED screens, they know how to put together a great laptop. Right? It's not a high entry barrier for someone to jump over. So when that happens, they're willingly putting themselves at a risk. Okay. Anyone with any examples of such a thing happening? Have a chat. Smartphone company getting their processor from vendors. Yes, Giri, very right. But what happens if such a company reaches a stage where they don't manufacture anything in-house? They have their core competency is just buying the best components, putting it together, and selling it, and maybe marketing these products. What happens to such a company? First of all, the entire value chain is not under their control. Okay, so the bargaining power of their suppliers becomes very high, because they will say that we are your only suppliers. This is the price we're going to sell you this component at, and it's up to you whether you want to buy it or not. So the bargaining power of the sellers becomes very high. On the other side, the bargaining power of the buyers also tends to go up, because they will say that you don't have any core competence. If something goes wrong with the phone tomorrow, you won't even be in a situation where you can repair it, because you're only good at assembling it and then marketing the phone. Okay, so I'm taking an extreme example, but those sort of situations could be common. We had another chat. We outsource, so Amol says we outsource some product testing to external labs. Yes, so some product testing to external labs, but you don't. Sorry, Amol, if I can ask, what company do you work for, please? And what is the product that you make?
I work in pharma industry, and
Okay.
some of the microbiological testing we outsource to the outside of the lab, because establishing a new facility for this microbiology testing is a very costly, and maintaining it's again very costly. So
Exactly.
we outsource. And second is competency of the person. We have to hire some competent person in that. So it's
Exactly.
better to outsource rather than engaging our people in that testing.
Correct. Okay, so I think that's a great example. Thank you, Amol. So I hope all of you are able to connect with that example. It's not a value-add service for the company. Sorry, what company do you work for, Amol?
I work with Syngin International.
Sorry,
Syngin.
Syngin. Okay. So it's not a value-add activity for them. Just the testing part of it. Whereas developing these pharmacological compounds, developing these drugs, that is really where Syngene excels. That is their core competence.
Yeah, discovery.
Yeah. So discovery, drug discovery trials. This is where they really excel, and they should, rightly so. They should focus on what they're good at rather than trying to do something that they're not good at and wasting their time and energy on it.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Okay. So the next point is can cause concerns because usually revolves around innovative ability and loss of jobs. We talked
But
about this.
sir, outsourcing for only a small part, for example, like Amol said, testing of the drugs, but there has to be a high trust factor with the other component to whom we are outsourcing. For example, if the testing results are not valid, but they are given as valid, then like that.
Correct. I mean, so for those sort of things, I think you have to choose the right company to outsource to, right? So, when let's say Maruti outsources some components, they don't just pick someone off, on the road who can make this component. They verify who the vendor is. They go through a rigorous process of validating their capabilities, seeing how profitable the vendor is, whether he's capable of supporting their business in the long term. They take care of these. So that is more of the operational part of it.
I think quality agreements take care of this.
Yeah. So quality agreements, non-disclosure agreements, so that no data is leaked out. So these things are more the operational aspects of it. It's less to do with strategy. So these are things that if they're taken care of once, you don't have to worry about again and again.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So the internal organization assessment and strategic decisions. Firms must identify their strengths and weaknesses, right? So every firm should know where what it's good at and what it's not good at. Knowing that it itself will give them some sort of strategic insight into what they can do. If Pizza Hut decides that they're not good at delivering pizzas, then that becomes their weakness, and they should know this. Either they improve their weakness or find a way to outsource that activity altogether. Appropriate resources and capabilities needed to develop desired strategy and create value for customers and other stakeholders. The tools, such as outsourcing, can help a firm focus on core competencies and as the source for competitive advantage. Core competencies have potential to become core rigidities. So we will come to this. Competencies emphasized when no longer competitively relevant can become weaknesses. So let's say there's a company, right, and they manufacture electric scooters, okay, and it's based on a certain battery technology, and they've invested a lot into building R&D labs, into building manufacturing facilities to manufacture this particular type of battery. If suddenly the entire battery industry changes and someone finds a new different kind of battery compound which can charge faster, is lighter, is easier to maintain, lasts longer, then the core competency of this company, it becomes their core rigidity, right? They're fixed, they're sort of stuck, so to say, with what they've invested on in the old technology. To some extent, I think you can also connect this to industry disruptions, another concept that we discussed in the first two classes. Right? Any other examples you like to give of core rigidities where companies have invested in a certain technology and later gotten stuck and gotten outdated?
Sorry, so I have core competencies and then later got stuck in.
So if a company has a certain core competency and the entire industry changes and the core competency is no longer relevant, okay, then the core competency becomes a core rigidity, which means that they're fixed. They can't, because they've invested so much money on building that core competency. They can't move away from it. They don't have the resources to invest in the new technology. Basically, they're disrupted. So I was asking if any of you have any examples of such a case.
I have one.
Go ahead, please.
Nokia, which
Okay.
suddenly
Okay. Can you explain that, please?
Nokia was like previously a dominant cell phone manufacturer supplier to all, but suddenly iPhone, smartphone came along.
Okay. Okay. Before that, what was their core competency back then?
Their core competencies was that telecommunication equipment, cell phone. But after that, they did not develop it into smart touch phone, like
Okay.
smartphone. But
Okay.
others did. So Android came along and then Nokia went out.
Okay. So, I mean, what prevented Nokia from keeping up with in the smartphone race? What was their core competency that became a core rigidity?
Change in technology.
Okay. Because
Change
I
in
think at some point Nokia was also making touchscreen phones, and what happened there? Why do you think that? There have been many case studies about Nokia and why they failed. But just from your perspective, why do each of you think Nokia sort of got left behind? It's not that they didn't have enough money to invest in R&D. They used to come out with several different phone models every quarter.
Maybe the founders of Nokia had a legacy or family tradition of that phone, that sort of style phone, and so did not change it.
Okay, so that is it sounds like a guess. So let's not guess. Let's take more sort of logical reasoning to figure out. So the commonly accepted explanation for Nokia's failure is that they simply refused to see the potential of what's up ahead. Right? They were so successful that they were victims of their own success. Right? So they had invested so heavily in phones with keypads and that style of phone that they never really looked beyond to what could be possible. And eventually, when the smartphones came along, they just couldn't keep up. Right. So this includes looking at what sort of operating systems come along. How the phone itself is changing from going to making a simple telephone call and receiving text messages and taking maybe pictures. Then it went on to playing a few games. From there, it's gone on to, if you look back now, we do so many things with our telephone that we didn't do in the last 15 years. Right? So if you go back 15 years time, in 2005, what phones could do, we do probably multiple times of what was possible with our phones back then. I mean, we can make payments. We can use it as a GPS device to drive from point A to point B. there's a very sort of famous image that floats around, or a video that floats around, how everything that used to be done by 10
Maybe
different products.
also internal politics or something like that, because some of the employees had suggested in Nokia to progress to touchscreen smartphone, but they had refused it in Japan, and then later on this smartphone came along.
Okay,
So
so
Jaydeep, I think it is the example of Kodak you're quoting here. Kodak.
okay, so very different examples
okay,
coming here. So Nokia is from Sweden, so I don't know what the Japan connection is there. Kodak is a company again from the US. But Kodak is an interesting example. I was waiting for someone to say that. Can you continue on Kodak? Sorry, I didn't see who made that comment. Somebody brought up the example of Kodak. If you can continue,
Amol
please.
did.
Okay.
Sir, Kodak was having use of investment and their product was a camera rolls, right? So further this era get changed and entire world is moved on digital cameras. So their
Mm.
original business is no longer remain in a
Mm.
world like that.
Mm. Mm. Okay, that's great. So again, another good example of companies that sort of got left behind because their core competence was making film reels. That was the dominant technology of the time. And when a disruption happened, they weren't flexible enough, they weren't agile enough to adapt to the new changing circumstances. Okay. Um, Taking our own example, why is the EMBA program at DSU successful? Because when the pandemic hit and everybody else had to shut down, we didn't even have to blink an eye, right? We were fully geared up to shift to online mode, right? So that builds a certain flexibility for us. Okay.
One more example is like a Premier Padmini car also, I think.
Yes. If you'd like to tell us more about that example.
Premier Padmini cars were considered as a premier car, premium cars uh, during those period of time.
Yeah.
So after that, Toyota, many of the uh, car companies came in a market, and there were several changes in automobile industries also. So that
Mm.
company failed to adopt that, and also there was a huge, huge order in a queue to book these Padmini cars and all those things.
Mm.
But company resist to change the
Mm.
maybe a change in, you can say, the company failed to accept the change as per the
Okay.
change in time, like that.
Okay. So, as from the strategic point of view, what is the lesson that we take away from that? Amol?
Sir, strategy should be flexible and it should accept maybe, and it should be acceptable maybe based on customer requirement.
Yeah. So basically, having sort of one eye on the future, always looking at what is coming up, what are the emerging trends, and wondering whether the company is geared up to take advantage of that trend, or if that emerging trend is actually indeed a threat for the company. Okay, so these are all abilities that strategically a company should have, and it's not just the role of the chief strategy officer to do these. It's the role of every employee to keep an eye out on what a threat could be for the company, what is the emerging trends, where there are opportunities. These sort of things are. It's not the role of just the top management. Every single person in the company has a role to play when it comes to strategy. Okay. Okay. So let's move on. Um, I will share. So this is the end of chapter 3 or our third portion of the book. I will share the next one. Let me know when you guys are able to see.
Yes, sir, it's okay.
Yes, sir, we can see so.
Able to see? Okay,
Yes, sir.
fine. So in this part, we will talk more about the business level strategy. So we talked about corporate strategy and business level strategy. The corporate strategy is more, overall long-term, big picture view, what's related to the vision of the company, and now we come to the mission part of the company. Okay, what is required to achieve the vision? How do we break up that vision into smaller parts and go about achieving that? So by now you should be familiar with this diagram, the entire strategic management process, right? So we've talked about what the vision mission is. That was a starting point. We talked about the external environment, how we look at the external environment using 5 forces. Then we talked about the internal organization, how we look inwards, what are the resources, capabilities that give us actually the competitive advantage. And now we come to the actual part where we create the strategy. So the strategy formulation. Okay. Before we can put a strategy in place, we first have to formulate the right strategy. It's not enough if you have any strategy; it has to be the right strategy. Okay, and that is you can never have the right strategy at all the time. Companies are bound to make mistakes, and the best way forward is to learn from that mistakes as quickly as possible and implement the lessons going forward. So we come to business level strategy. So these are the content areas that we'll be talking about. We'll define what business level strategy is. We'll look at what the relationship between customers and strategy is. Differences in the different kinds of business level strategies. We'll come back to 5 forces again. We'll revisit that. And what are the risks of business level strategies? Right. Before we start this, have any of you taken a look at the assignment? Any questions on the assignment? I'd uploaded it last week.
Sir, I had was taking a look that PDF we have to read attached first.
Sorry?
Case study.
That full case study
Yeah.
attached. I'm not completed reading it yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so that is the assignment. I'm asking if any of you had a look into that PDF and understood what the case is about. I've included some things that we'll discuss in today's class also as part of that assignment. So things like value chain, business level strategies. I've sort of included parts of those also in that assignment. I mean, have any of you read the assignment? I mean, the case.
Yes, it's related to Porter's 5 forces only.
So Jaideep, have you read the specific case?
About Azimuth, one case study.
Correct. Are you reading it now, or have you read it and understood what the case is about and read the questions after that?
And started reading it but did not complete it. So I'll
Okay,
open
so
now.
no, I mean, I'm asking if anyone else has read through it and has any questions right now.
Sir, I have not read it, so cannot say
Not a
on it.
problem. Not a problem. It's okay. I mean, you have time till 23rd to submit your assignment. So I won't accept any submissions after the 23rd, but until 23rd midnight, you're free to, you can start at 11 o'clock on 23rd, and as long as you can submit it before 11:59, I think it should be okay, right? So no, I really don't care when you start reading the assignment. I was just wanting to know if anyone has read the assignment and has any doubts at this point in time. If you haven't, then well and good. It's fine. I leave that to you when you want to read the assignment and when you want to answer it. That's left up to you. I'm always available to answer any questions. Simply because I remember that I uploaded an assignment. I wanted to check if any of you have read it. Okay, so what is the importance of business strategy? Increasingly important to a firm's success and concerned with making choices among two or more alternatives. Choices dictated by external environment and internal environment, which is basically resources, capabilities, and core competencies. So the business level strategy, it is the integrated and coordinated set of commitments and actions by the firm to gain a competitive advantage by exploiting core competencies in a specific product, in specific product markets. So long definition, I won't expect you to remember these exact words, as long as you can explain to me what business level strategy is, right? Integrated and coordinated, easy to understand. Commitments and actions, again, I think it's easy to understand. After our discussions in the last 3 classes that what competitive advantage is. What core competencies are, and I think you have a fair idea of what product markets are. Okay, so as long as you can connect these concepts and tell me what business level strategy is, I think you've understood what we've been talking about so far in the last 2.5 classes. Satisfying customers is the foundation of successful business strategies, right? Without a customer to buy your product or service, then you stand nowhere. What we need to do to be successful at this is manage relationships with customers. You have to have richness, and affiliation. You have to choose who will be served, and you need to look at what needs will be satisfied. Every customer will have a slightly different need from the same product or service that you're providing, and how those needs will be satisfied. Okay. Before we go into the 5 generic business level strategies, can we look at an industry and a company in that industry and what product they make or service they offer? Guys, come on. I mean, it's not that difficult to give an industry and a company in that industry. If I feel it's something that everybody won't understand, then I will say, we will take another example. But please feel free to give me an industry and a company in that industry. It could be the first thing that comes to your mind.
I would say smartphone, Android, and Samsung, for example.
Okay. Let's go with that example. So, how do mobile phone companies manage a relationship with their customers? Where does the relationship between the mobile phone company and the customer start?
I think first by endorsements, advertising.
Right. The relationship starts when customer is first made aware of the existence of a certain product. So that is where the relationship starts. How that product is introduced to the customer, in terms of how it looks, what price it's sold at, is it easily available? All these things are factors that impact the relationship the company establishes with the customer. Okay. Later on, it goes to how easy it is to buy. After you buy it, how easy it is to use. If the product requires any spares, how easy it is to get, or how reliable that product is. And then later on, how easy it is to sell that product, or how easy it is to, what sort of byproducts are generated. Like if you have, let's say, a juice making machine, right? So the byproduct would be the seeds and the skin of the fruits, right? If you buy a fruit juicing machine, so how do you deal with the byproducts? So all these kind of things figure into the relationship a company has with its customers. We have a chat. Giri, Telecom and Airtel. Again, so this is an example more of a service. Here you're buying more of a service, the telecom service. Also equally valid example. Thank you, Giri, for that. Thank you, Jaideep, for suggesting this example. So a company will also choose who will be served with a certain product. Okay. So let's say Samsung with that, what is the latest phone, S20? Uh, they will pick and choose who that customer, who the product is intended for. It's not intended for everyday people, right? It's intended for a certain category, a certain segment of customers who have a certain set of needs. Whatever those needs could be functional needs, could be superficial needs, but they have a set of needs. Maybe they hold it because holding the latest Samsung phone um, fills some sort of need in their lives, or it could be because it has some function that is required for them. Okay? Usually, it's a combination of both. A lot of the products that we use, it fulfills a function plus being associated, affiliated to the brand and to the company, also fills a certain sort of need in our own lives. It also chooses what needs will be satisfied, okay, and it will look at how these needs will be satisfied. So these are all the different ways in which a company creates a business strategy. Now let's look at the 5 generic business level strategies. What does generic mean? It can be used by any organization competing in the industry. So okay. Now let's look at the customers and their relationship with the business level strategies. Strategic competitiveness results when firms can satisfy customers by using its competitive advantages. Returns earned are the lifeblood of the firm. Most successful companies satisfy current customers and or meet needs of new customers. Okay, fairly simple points. I think fairly obvious points. Do I need to explain any of these? I doubt if I need to explain any of these. Any doubts on any of these terms? If you see a word or a definition that you don't understand, please let me know, or if a concept that you don't understand. Okay, so Giri says no need to explain. I hope everyone else also feels the same way. So we'll move ahead. Amol, I don't understand what you meant.
No concern, sir.
Oh, no concerns. Okay, thanks. Okay, we'll talk about the different components of customer relationships. Effectively managing relationships with customers, um, delivering a superior value. When somebody buys a product or service, it has to give them some sort of, it should fulfill a function. It should fulfill a need that they have. It should deliver superior value in terms of the customer must feel at the minimum that for what they are paying, the product or service has done justice. The price has done justice for whatever the product or service that they've bought. Okay, strong interactive relationships is the foundation. Most products, right, that we buy, the company that's manufacturing these products and or the company that's marketing these products will have a very strong reach with the customers who use this product. It could be something very specialized. It could be like a highly specialized tool, or it could be something very generic or very general that all of us use, like let's say shampoo. Okay, in each of these sort of extreme ends of the spectrum, there is a strong interactive relationship between the company and the customer. Starting with the doing product surveys, what is the customer needs, identifying the needs, and developing a product to fulfill these needs, to making the customer aware that such a product is available. What are the features and advantages, benefits of using this product, at what price it's sold. The entire sort of activity chain is managed by a company, or needs to be managed by a company. Next is reach, richness, and affiliation. Access and connection to customers is reach. For whatever target audience your customer product is meant for, you should be able to reach as many people in that target audience as possible, right? So if your company makes clothes for babies, then you should be able to reach as many parents as possible. Okay, so that is called reach. Second is depth and detail of two-way flow of information between firm and customer. That is richness. So let's take the current example where, in the situation that we're in, every company that's selling a product or a service is making it a point to ensure that they talk about the pandemic and COVID, right? They will say that our product has been cleaned and so and so, manufactured in a clean facility. It's delivered in a clean way. You don't have to worry. It has these features, right? So the richness of interaction with its customers is always emphasized. Then the affiliation, facilitating useful interactions with customers. So when you're affiliated to a company, typically they will spend more money on interacting with customers who have already bought their product. So if you buy a phone and if you buy an Airtel connection, you have access to call call center and say that, I'm not getting network. How do I change the setting? You can ask them, right? But if you haven't bought an Airtel SIM, you don't have access. You simply have access to their advertisements. You simply have access to what are the network coverage of Airtel, that sort of information. That basic information is made available for free, but as part of someone who has bought their product or service, you get a lot more interaction from the company. Determining the customers to serve. So this is called market segmentation. Have you studied this concept in the previous term, or maybe term 1? Market segmenting, maybe it's part of your marketing course.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So all of you are aware what market segmenting is, right? So it's dividing customers into groups based on difference in needs. Process used to cluster people with similar needs into individual and identifiable groups. For example, consumer and industrial markets. Okay. Next is determining which customer needs to satisfy. So you need to, after you figure out who to go after, you need to figure out what they need. So related to a product's benefits and features, you must anticipate and be prepared. So what are the different features? If your phone is a low-cost phone, then you offer a low-cost phone, right? Because that serves the needs of a certain customer segment. It might not serve the needs of someone who's looking for a lot more features, but someone who's looking for just a phone with a few features. If your product serves that segment, then that's what you need to go after. You need to decide which segment that you need to go after. Sorry, was there a comment? Anyone want to add anything? No?
No, sir. Probably somebody
Okay,
has
by mistake. Okay, fine.
Yeah,
Fair
yeah,
enough.
yeah.
Okay. Translate into features and performance capabilities of products. You can also say products or services. So anywhere in the entire course where I say products, if I've missed saying services, please mentally add that, because this entire course we are looking at both products and services. We don't say, okay, this concept applies only to products or only to services. If there are instances where a certain concept applies only to products or only to services, then I will let you know at that point. After you figured out who to go after, what sort of customers to go after, what they need, how to fulfill those needs. Now you go after how to fulfill these needs. So determining the core competencies necessary to satisfy customer needs. So we're talking about this in a very detailed, elaborate, as part of a deep discussion, but it could be a decision that's for some companies that is made in, like, let's say, less than one day. Okay, if you look at someone in a village who wants to set up a tea shop, he will not go and interview every person in his village and say, okay, how often do you drink tea, or what brand of tea do you drink, at what time do you drink, how much do you spend on a cup of tea. He won't ask any of this. Uh, a person in a village will know intuitively what the needs are, and it won't take much time for him. Within a week after he decides, he can put up a small tea stall and start doing business. But what we're looking at is sort of a framework within which these factors are considered. Okay, if you go back to these 5 components of customer relationships, it will apply from the smallest sort of tea shop to the biggest organizations. Okay, so that's the reason I constantly ask for examples of industries and a company, so that we get a lot of interesting industries and companies, and we can take examples from them and apply these concepts. So I really want to, I don't want you to take these concepts because I'm telling you that this is how it's done. Let's apply these concepts to companies, and let's see if really it's true, if these concepts apply across different companies. Core competencies, resources, and capabilities that serve as source of competitive advantage for firm over its rivals. The how is given by the core competencies. We'll talk about differences in business strategies. Before that, do we need to explore customer relationship with one more company? Anyone want to take an example?
Sure, sir. I would like.
Jaideep, sorry, I would like to encourage someone else. Sorry, but I really want. I know you had an example ready, and but I want to open this opportunity. Anyone else? Okay, then we give the opportunity to Jaideep again. Jaideep, go ahead, please.
That customer satisfaction, determining customer needs to satisfy, that comes in that software industry, IT industry also, this factor, because that is considered as one of the factors that the managers keep control and keep checking, like index of customer satisfaction, taking regular feedbacks from customers, and measuring the satisfaction and feedback, and then trying to improve,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your comment, but I was asking for if we need to take one more industry and company and explore these 5 components of customer relationships, something that we haven't talked about, something unconventional, so that we really understand this concept of customer relationships. If you guys feel you've understood, then let's move on to the next concept. So what is the purpose of business level strategies? The purpose is to create differences between position of a firm and its competitors. Okay, so if there are two tea stalls, I like to take simple examples so that everyone understands. So I will constantly take things like tea stalls, or small restaurants, or small shops, basically because it's simpler to understand. Um, it's easier to understand what is 2 times 2 rather than what is 546 times 372, right? So that's the reason I take simple examples. So a firm must make a deliberate choice to perform activities differently and perform different activities. So what is the difference between these two? Perform activities differently and perform different activities.
First is the if a competitor is also having a same product or services, some value addition into that, and you can perform this or deliver this activity uh, differently, and perform different activities means coming in the market with a different services and product.
Correct. So both are important, right? Amol, I don't know
Yes,
what
sir.
your comment was.
Yeah.
You said no, sir.
No, actually, no,
Oh, for
no
the previous one.
example.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
For the previous one. Okay, okay. Fine. Activity map exemplifies a firm's activities, how they're integrated. So this is more of a specific example that's probably taken in the textbook. We won't go into this. So this is, an airline activity system. So we won't go into this sort of a detailed example. We'll come back to the two types of competitive advantage a firm must choose between. One is cost, the other is uniqueness. Okay, so fairly straightforward, fairly intuitive for all of us. Um, you can have competitive advantage either because you have a lower cost, or you are unique, which means you are different from your rivals. So at the very core of strategy, you have to decide um, between two questions, right? So in each of my strategy classes, I start with by saying, if you had to ask me to teach what strategy is to a small child, I would say strategy comes down to two questions. Okay, so the two questions are, where do we play and how do we win? Okay, I'll give you a minute to think about that. Where do we play and how do we win? So a company has to decide, where do we play, meaning what are the customers that we're going to go after, where we're going to set up our factory or shop. That's the where part of it. At what price we're going to sell it, and how are we going to be the best in that business, right? So these are the two sort of core questions that you should ask in terms of strategy. That it's as simple as that. Where do we play and how do we win? We come to two types of competitive scope firms must choose between. So one is a broad target and a narrow target. So a broad target could mean that a firm offers products and services across a range of product categories. So someone like ITC will offer so many different product categories, whereas a smaller company will have a narrow target and they will offer, let's say Unibic, they offer far less categories of biscuits compared to ITC. It's true that Unibic is also growing, which means that they are changing from a narrow target to a broad target. When your business grows, it's inevitable that you shift from a narrow target to a broad target, because that's simply how businesses grow. Okay. These combine to yield 5 different business level strategies. So you can combine cost, uniqueness, and broad or narrow target to come up with 5 unique business level strategies. So these are the 5 level different business level strategies. You could have a competitive scope or a competitive advantage. Scope meaning broad target or narrow target, and you can either focus on cost or uniqueness, right? So you have a 2x2 matrix, and you have something that integrates all 4 elements. So when you say you have a broad target and you differentiate by cost, right? So that's where you have cost leadership. Okay. So let's say a company like let's say Hero Honda, right? So they have a broad target. They want to sell their motorbikes to as many riders as possible, and they want to sell it at a fairly low price, which means that they're offering value for a low cost, which means that they focus on cost leadership. Then you have a company like Britannia or ITC who have a broad target, but their competitive advantage comes from uniqueness, right? So uh, many people will try to copy it, but there is only one Britannia Marie biscuit. Okay, that they differentiate their products from their competitors by their certain recipe or their marketing or whatever the factors may be. Okay, so that is called differentiation business strategy. The third one is to have have a narrow target, which means that you make only a specific set of products and you focus on low cost, which means focused cost leadership. And the other one is narrow target and uniqueness, which gives you a focused differentiation. Okay. Anyone want to give examples for these two? Of course, then the fifth one is integrated cost leadership or differentiation. So where you differentiate both by cost and by product uniqueness, and either you choose a narrow target or you choose a broad target. And when I say cost leadership, you could also sort of say, I charge a high amount for my product or service because that's the way I differentiate from my competitors. Okay? It's not just low cost that we're talking about when we say cost leadership. It means high cost also. So any examples for, some more examples for these 5 business level strategies that you'd like to take? Or let's take the other way around. Again, I will ask you for an industry and an organization. And let's
Sir,
see if they follow, which one of these 5 business level strategies they follow. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Sir, cost leadership in case of automobile industry, we can take example of Tata Motors.
Okay, great.
Broad target and cost effective.
Okay, great. What else? Just start giving me industries and companies in which these industries work. So then we can start classifying which one of these 5 squares, rectangles they belong to. No examples? Guys, I want this class to be more interactive, purely because when you give an example yourself and you sort of work through the problem, that's the only way you will understand this concept. So 13 students in this class and no one with an example. Okay, Jaideep says McDonald's. Sure. Jaideep, shall we discuss McDonald's? What do you think would be their business level strategy? Do they differentiate by cost or because their product is unique? Jaideep?
Yeah, hello, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say cost leadership because since their slogan itself is like experience the best fast food experience, have the best fast food experience, and they are providing cheap like fast food which got branded. So it may be cost leadership or focused. I don't know.
I would say they are in the green box, right? Because if you see, they want to attract as many people as possible, offer their food at lower, comparatively lower prices, but they also want to do differentiation, right? So they want to say that we offer menu items that our competitors don't offer. Okay. I can't think of any McDonald's menu items, but they have burgers that you won't get in like a KFC or a Burger King. Okay, so that is how they differentiate, and they have a little bit of focused differentiation also. So for burgers, they have a very focused differentiation. For their what else do they sell? They sell French fries, right? So they, for their French fries, they don't have a differentiation, much of a differentiation, apart from cost leadership. For a lower price, you can get a lot more French fries at McDonald's. Maybe that's their competitive advantage.
Okay.
Giri, what does unique mean?
Yeah, like actually I said like for McDonald's they are more concentrating on uniqueness.
Unique how?
Like as you said, like if we like in McDonald's like I forgot that burger name, so that is not available in KFC or even Pizza Hut or something like that. So that's why.
Correct,
So
right?
unique products, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Unique products. So you making something unique is making it different from the competitor products, which is exactly what differentiation is. Okay. Further examples?
Sir,
A
we
bit of
can,
a
sir,
yeah.
we can take a pharma industry example here. So, because there are a few companies which are working or operating in a local market with a
Okay.
wide range of the product, like over the counter and maybe generic medicines, you can say. And some of
Okay.
the companies which are offering only unique product, like a large molecule, like a pacemaker and all these things. Narrow target in the sense some cancer. Some cancer medicines and all these things like Johnson and Johnson, Sandoz. These are
Hmm.
unique company and narrow focused, but they are and with a narrow product range. And
Okay.
focus differentiation is also like that. Some special elements are there, like
Hmm.
orphan drugs, which are
Hmm.
getting marketed in the market. So
Hmm.
these few of the companies are market their products in this range also.
Okay. Great example. Pharma companies, were you talking about a specific company and their products?
No, we are talking across the industry.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to take a specific example?
Uh, Here, a specific example we cannot take because all companies are having a wide range of the product, but they are focusing on some specific and targeted products which are beneficial to them and which add values to the society, like that.
Okay. Good.
So
So
if
from
you
the,
if you ask me,
I'll just add to that, Amol. Amol, right?
yeah,
Sorry, yeah, Amol. So I'll just add to that. So if you take, let's say, a compound like paracetamol, right? So
hmm,
that's fairly, for a company like who markets Crocin, I forget.
Cipla.
Cipla, right? So for
Hmm,
Cipla, the basic paracetamol, formulation, for them that will fall under cost leadership, right? They
yeah,
want
yeah,
to produce paracetamol because they can't differentiate it in any way, right?
hmm,
Paracetamol is paracetamol. They find there's very few ways in which they can differentiate it and say this is different from our competitor products. What they can do is their competitive advantage can be cost. They can say that we can produce paracetamol at the lowest price and we will call it Crocin and make it available to as many people as possible. So that is the broad target.
yeah.
Okay. Um, let's contrast that with let's say something like a vaccine for uh, COVID, right? The company that comes up with that, their competitive advantage is differentiation. Differentiation meaning nobody else has this solution, right? And of course, their target will tend to be narrow because they can't sell to anyone in the world. Their target will be to the customers who are currently infected with the virus. Sorry, currently who are not infected with the virus because they don't want to catch the virus. That's why you take a vaccine. You wouldn't take a vaccine if you've already got the infection and survived it. Sorry.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Fine. So 1 second. So it's about 3:10 on my watch. We usually take a break around this time. What time do you guys take a break? We started at 1:45. Would like to take a break now. We can take a break and come back, and we'll have about 1 more hour, and then we finish up the rest of this. So Amol says yes for a break. Everyone else?
Sure, sir. Okay.
Okay, so 9-minute break. 3:11 on my clock. 3:20 is when we will start. Sounds good?
Okay, sir.
Great. All right, thank you. All right. Hope everyone had a good quick break, short one. So let's continue with the business level strategies. So let's look at cost leadership a little bit in depth. What is the kind of competitive advantage that you get when you say you have cost leadership? Okay, the low cost leader and is one who operates with margins greater than competitors. Okay, so if you look at a company and you look at how they do business, let's say a company sells cell phones, right? So all other companies sell a similar or comparable kind of cell phone at a certain price. But the company that makes the most profit is the company that has the lowest costs, because the difference between your selling price and your cost is your profit, right? So basic sort of economics that all of you are familiar with. Integrated set of actions designed to produce or deliver goods or services with features that are acceptable to customers at the lowest cost relative to competitors, tend to be no-frill standardized goods, continuously reduce costs of value chain activities. Inbound, outbound logistics account for significant cost. The low-cost position is valuable defense against rivals. Okay. Any points that any of you would like me to discuss on this? So although it mentions on this slide that cost leadership is usually because of a no-frill standardized good, right? It can also mean the other end of the spectrum as well. Cost leadership meaning if you still sell your product at a high price, but you can source your raw materials at a relatively lower price than your competitors, then you've achieved cost leadership. Doesn't mean all the time that you have to sell your product at a low price to achieve cost leadership. And they tend to be standardized no-frill goods. So a good example of this is, I'm sure all of you have shopped on Amazon, right? If you go to Amazon, there is something called Amazon Basics. How many of you are familiar with Amazon Basics? Have any of you seen something called Amazon Basics? No? Just hold on a second. I'll stop my share. Let's go to the actual Amazon site, and I will share with you what Amazon Basics is. I'm doing this because I want to introduce another concept called private labels here. So just give me a second.
Is it medicine, vitamins or something?
No, not just limited to that. Let me know once you're able to see the screen. Everyone able to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is Amazon basics that I was talking about, right? So Amazon is not really known for making towels or bed sheets or bed covers or these USB chargers. These are all products that Amazon is not known for at all, right? You don't. I mean, Amazon is not known for They don't have a very great brand of air conditioners or umbrellas or bags, right? Or notebooks. What they do is, so I want to introduce a concept that's called private labels here. Okay, so Amazon Basics is basically a private label of Amazon. So how they achieve cost leadership is they will buy these products which they know that they have fairly larger demand than certain specialized products. So you will never find something like a fountain pen on Amazon Basics, because many people don't buy fountain pens. What you will find is Amazon Basics brand of ballpoint pens, because companies and homes, small offices, all of them buy a huge quantity of ballpoint pens, right? Maybe schools, maybe um, whatever, libraries, um, other government offices, they buy such a product in huge quantities. So what Amazon has done is identified a set of products that sell in high volume, which means large numbers, and it has found suppliers, and all it does is tells the suppliers that you just have to put the Amazon logo on it, and it'll be sold at a certain price on our website. Okay, so Amazon buys it at a certain price from the vendor, and it sells it at a certain price. So they're called Amazon Basics. So let's just go back to that site, right? So do you think Amazon has a factory where they make cotton towels or USB cables or lockers or chairs? Do you think they have a factory where they make this exclusively?
No, sir.
I highly doubt it, right? They don't. I don't think they have bags, school bags, right? But what Amazon Basics does is it offers these products at a relatively lower price than other of the branded products. So if you take, let's say, a similar backpack in Nike, it might cost you maybe twice as much, or maybe even 3 times as much, right? So anywhere between 1,000 to 2,500 is what you'll expect to pay for a Nike branded bag like this. But Amazon Basics sells it at 689 per bag. Okay, because they know they can sell a high volume. They offer some sort of choice in the color of the bag, but otherwise it's completely unbranded. If you let's even just have a look at what this is. It's just a simple backpack, a small backpack, 21 liters, something that people can take to schools or colleges, offices. There's a fairly huge demand for this sort of a bag at 689 rupees. You won't think twice before buying this, especially for kids. If you have two kids at home, maybe one wants a red, another one wants a white, and then one day it gets wet in the rain, and the bag is no longer usable, or it gets old after 1 year. The parents won't think twice, when the school starts next year, to buy a new bag, right? So this is how they take advantage of cost leadership. They buy it in bulk, and they are able to get it for a lower cost, and they're able to sell a higher volume. Okay. Other ways in which companies will do that is they will optimize the logistics part of it. Okay, so instead of selling only in one store, if they can sell through, let's say, a authorized dealer sort of network, which is what our case also deals with in some aspect. Our case is about a watch company that starts off just after the Second World War, and how they grow, and they're able to sell their watches to customers all over the world, right? So they've taken advantage of that, and that's how they've sort of saved on that cost of setting up shops in a different city in each country, right? So I feel you need to keep these concepts in mind to answer those questions. the assignment questions. And a low cost position is a valuable defense against rivals, right? So if you find something that you can sell for cheap, buy for cheap and sell at whatever price, and your competitors don't have access to that source, then it becomes a competitive advantage for you. It becomes a defense against those rivals. Let's say you're in the business of, let's take a company that manufactures coffee powder. Okay, if they have a huge coffee estate, let's say in Coorg or in Kerala, where they grow their own coffee, which means that they don't have to buy from a coffee grower or another coffee estate and then process it. They grow everything, right? That immediately lowers their cost. Okay, because if they buy it from someone, then they have to pay sort of a premium on whatever they buy. If they made it in-house, they might be able to make it at a lower cost. Okay, and it's not easy to go out and buy a coffee estate, right? It's easy to buy coffee beans, but if you want to buy an estate and grow your own beans, it's difficult. If you're able to achieve that, then it becomes a defense against rivals. The other companies who sell coffee powder, they will find it hard to go and buy, let's say, 200 acres of coffee estate and start growing their own beans, because it lowers their cost, right? So it's a complex process. I'm trying to sort of simplify it, but are you guys getting the idea of what I'm saying here with cost leadership? Any questions or comments with cost leadership? I had a chat, but I don't see. I don't know. Let me just. Yeah. So any comments on this at all? I don't know why I'm not able to see the chat window. It suddenly sort of disappeared.
I typed in chat. You can see.
Okay. Looks like I missed a comment. Missed a few comments. Sorry. So Lakshmi Priya said even Flipkart Smart Buy does the same job. So I haven't shopped on Flipkart for a while. So if it's a similar concept, then it could be the same. Lakshmi, if you can explain what Smart Buy is. Private brand name. Okay, great. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. So if Smart Buy is the private brand name for Flipkart, then it does the same thing that Amazon Basics does. You also have private brand names, or what you call private label, or internal brands in places like Food World or Reliance Fresh, right? So you will go and you will find, let's say, Reliance Fresh branded atta. Okay, it might not be the highest quality, but you're getting the same quality. I mean, the same quantity for a significantly lower price. Okay, so again, this is their competitive. Their way to achieve competitive advantage. Sorry, someone else was saying something. I don't know if it was Amol or Jaideep or someone else.
No, sir.
Okay. So I'm assuming that you guys have understood what is meant by cost leadership. Let's move forward. Cost leaders are in a position to absorb supplier price increases and relationship demands, force suppliers to hold down their prices. Okay. Continuously improve levels of efficiency and cost reduction can be difficult to replicate, and can serve as significant entry barriers to potential competitors. So again, all points that we have just discussed. Cost leaders hold an attractive position in terms of product substitutes with the flexibility to lower prices to retain customers. So product substitutes is exactly what we're talking about, the private labels, right? They give a few examples here: Greyhound Bus, Big Lots Incorporated, and Walmart. So these are US brands. I don't know if everyone will be able to relate to these brands, so which is why I took more the brands that we are familiar with. Things like Flipkart, Amazon, these sort of Reliance Fresh, these sort of examples. Okay.
Walmart acquired Flipkart.
Yeah. Okay, so next we'll come to examples of value creating activities associated with the cost leadership strategy. Okay. So these are, we earlier today we talked about what are the primary activities and the secondary activities. So that diagram has just been turned by 90 degrees. So what's below is your primary activities, which is inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, marketing, sales, service, and the secondary activities of firm infrastructure, HR, technology, and procurement are the secondary activities. So let's start with the primary activities. What are the activities that a company which aims for cost leadership must do in order to increase value through cost leadership? Okay. So inbound logistics, which means the way in which raw materials are brought in to be processed. Highly efficient systems to link supplier products with the firm's production processes. So if you look at, let's say McDonald's or KFC or Burger King, Subway, these fast food chains, they have a very efficient way of bringing in the raw material from maybe a central warehouse to each of their franchisee locations. Right? So inbound logistics are made highly efficient. You can also take this same example with, let's say, Starbucks or Barista or Coffee Day. You can take the same example. Inbound logistics are made highly efficient. In terms of operations, use of economies of scale to reduce production costs. Economies of scale, is this a concept that you guys remember from any of our previous classes? Anyone?
Economic scale, yes, we understood in previous classes, and that economic scale, like the volume at which you have the minimum or lowest the manufacturing cost, and that is gives you a better profitability.
Great. So, Ashish, are you able to relate this to cost leadership?
Yeah, because see what happens, and disadvantage over your competitor, then that will be what called cost leadership, and you have control over the market.
Correct. Great. So next, in terms of operations, what do companies who focus on cost leadership do? Construction of efficient scale production facilities, which means efficient scale, meaning if you know that you have a fixed output, then you plan your production only for that output, right? Or maybe plus minus 10%, but not more than that. You won't have a factory that is capable of manufacturing 5,000 cars a month when you know the demand is only about, let's say, 1,500 cars a month, right? So that's called construction of efficient scale production facilities. Next, we come to outbound logistics, a delivery schedule that reduces costs, selection of low cost transport carriers. So this is exactly what we were talking about a little bit earlier today with the example of Pizza Hut. Outbound logistics. So when they have a product, they will find the most efficient way to get it from their facility to the customers. Okay. So yeah, nowadays it could be in terms of Swiggy or Zomato, right? Whatever the way, they will find the most efficient way to get it from their place to the customer's place. Sometimes outbound logistics could mean that the customers themselves come and pick the product from where it's made. Examples of this could be restaurants where the most efficient way is customers come to the restaurants and sit there and eat. That way they don't have to invest in a delivery network, their scooters, their boxes, petrol, their salaries, none of that is required, right? They just have to make the food, customers come and they sit there and they eat and they finish and it's done. That whole sort of headache of having to send your product to the customer's place is completely eliminated. So that could also be a way in which outbound logistics is optimized, right? So which is exactly, how McDonald's also does the same thing with takeaway. People who don't want to come and sit there but also don't want the food delivered to their home, they, maybe they have a lunch break, they just want to pick up something quickly, take it away and eat it wherever, in their car or in their office or wherever. Okay, next we
So,
come
but
to
I had a question like
yeah.
it must be very puzzling for the companies like increasing efficiency and also decreasing costs.
Mhm.
Like inbound logistics and all, making it efficient will mean investing in better equipment and all. That would increase costs, but we have to decrease costs.
Correct. So, Jaideep, again, this comes back to our concept of using economies of scale. So, if let's say you buy a machine that costs a lot initially, right? Initial investment is high, but it can run for the next 20 years without breaking down, without much maintenance. Then you're achieving economies of scale. If you buy a cheaper machine which can produce a lower quantity and needs frequent maintenance, then those costs also add up to your production costs, right? So they add up to your cost structure. Are you seeing what I'm
Okay.
trying to explain?
Yes. Saving cost over long time. Okay.
Exactly. Okay. Next, we look at sales and marketing and sales. What do companies who focus on cost leadership do in terms of marketing and sales? They have a small, highly trained sales force, products priced so as to generate significant sales volume. Okay, so pretty much exactly what we were just talking about, economies of scale, and they're priced so that they have the optimal, I mean, they have a high number of products sold, and they generate significant sales volume, and also a small highly trained sales force. So instead of having let's say 20 people who know a little bit about your product and are trying to go out and sell it, if you hire 5 people who know the in and out of how your product is made, where the raw material is sourced from, how the product is going to be, how it's going to perform, what the maintenance costs are going to be, then you will achieve cost leadership, because you're basically lowering your cost. It might cost more to train each person, but overall you will have fewer number of people for whom you have to pay salaries every month. Okay. Next, we come to service. Efficient and proper product installations in order to reduce the frequency and severity of recalls. Okay, so they try to so here a little bit of the quality aspect also comes in. So if let's say an AC manufacturer, they come and they install a product once, and after 2 days the customer calls and says, no, the AC stopped working, there's a loose connection, this switch is not working, it shuts off suddenly, they have to come back again and rectify it, right? So the service part of it, if they can in the first place do a thorough job, and they don't have any recalls of service, then it immediately adds to their cost. They're saving the cost of sending a service person a second time to do the same job, right? So any questions on any of these primary activities on cost leadership?
No, sir.
Any
Okay.
other, shall we take another example to explore this? Each of these inbound logistics operations, outbound marketing, service. If any of you want to give an example of a company that you feel offers, I mean, goes after cost leadership versus product differentiation.
like in solar energy, where China has like the Chinese manufacturer really goes with the cost leadership. So like in India, we don't have scale. So in India, the manufacturers are not having cost leadership at all. So cost leadership goes to Chinese companies. They manufacture a very big scale that comes in a gigawatt scale, and that's why whatever even government keeps duty, whatever taxes, after that also those products are affordable. So this is what in solar industry it becomes now commodity market, apart from becoming a very scientific market. So that is what is example of cost leadership from Chinese manufacturers.
Great example, Ashish. Thank you for that. But one point you left out was, how do you think they achieve this cost leadership?
This is as they have like as you know that China has done lots of preparedness to become manufacturing hub. So the simple thing that they have all auxiliary units, or all whatever raw material they use, everything is near to the factory, and their cost of raw material and cost of manufacturing is relatively lower than any part of the world, because of the logistics what we have, and because of those things. Yeah.
Labor also?
No. The labor cost is more or less similar in all places. Not difference in labor cost. The difference one is the raw material cost, because of logistic issues, and the raw material suppliers also are having big scale. So like it's an integrated chain. So everyone has advantage of scale of economy, as well as logistics advantages, and being innovative. So they are the leader in doing innovations in those fields. This is the reason they have biggest scale of production and cost-effective manufacturing.
Great example, Ashish. Thank you for that.
Sir,
it's a good example.
As an operation point of view, implementing Lean and Six Sigma will also part of cost leadership strategy, right?
Yes.
As operation point
definitely.
of view.
Definitely.
Okay.
Do you want to explain another one or two sentences on that? How cost leadership relates to Six Sigma?
Because
of these, you have 5 of these, right? Inbound logistics, operations, outbound marketing, and service.
Yeah.
Where does Six Sigma Lean most impact?
Operations and logistics.
Okay. And how?
Because Six Sigma is related to minimizing defects. So right first time and on time, it will reduce the cost of the this thing final product. And Lean is something removal of waste from your process. So again, it is if I correlate it with the production and maybe operation, removal of non-value added activities will reduce your cost of product.
Great. Also, do you want to expand this to include some just-in-time principles, just-in-time manufacturing?
Sorry, sir, I could not get you.
Do you want to include some just-in-time concepts to this also? GMT?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So that's about, okay, we have a few comments, sorry. Jaideep says, yes, Lean Six Sigma is used in IT also for process improvement. Great, thank you, Jaideep. So
yes, removing waste and reducing variations.
Yeah. So you're trying to standardize the process as much as possible, so that there's no variation, right? The defects per million are brought down as much as possible, right? Any Six Sigma green belts, black belts here?
I just did one competency course on Lean Six Sigma.
Okay. Anyone else with green belt?
Yes, sir. I have completed green belt certification, but in long back in 2012, I think.
It doesn't matter still. All right. Okay. Next, we come to the secondary activities. What are the sort of features of companies who focus on cost leadership in terms of secondary activities? So first, we'll start with firm infrastructure, cost-effective management information systems, relatively few managerial layers in order to reduce overhead costs, simplified planning practices to reduce planning costs. Okay, so the firm itself tends to be a very simple organization. You won't have like 5 levels of hierarchy between the top management and the shop floor workers. It'll be fairly simply, there'll be one guy who owns and runs the shop, and he'll have like probably 30-40 people working under him. Okay, so that's typically how a firm which focuses on cost leadership works. They have relatively flat hierarchies. Um, Again, cost-effective management information systems. So they won't invest in fancy hi-fi software to manage their entire business. They will make do with Excel. In many cases, they will just have let's say a ledger in which they record their business transactions and all that. Of course, that sort of thing is becoming less and less common because the way the tax laws are framed now. Companies have to file the returns every year, and they have to build a track record of filing returns, which helps them with their loan process and all of this, right? So but still, companies will try to find the most cost effective way of managing their information. On the human resources front, consistent policies to reduce turnover costs, intense and effective training programs to improve worker efficiency and effectiveness. So, okay, I'll once again give the opportunity for you guys to give me an example of a industry and a company which focuses on cost leadership. So guys, there is no wrong answer. The answer you may give, I may say that it's not very general, so everyone might not understand it. But otherwise, there is no wrong answer. So I mean, it's not difficult. Think of an industry and think of a company which focuses on cost leadership, and then we can discuss these according to that. So far, I haven't heard much from Aman. I haven't heard much from Amit, Anil, Deepashri, Lakshmi, a few comments, Rajeshwari, Ramya, Syed, Vinay. Um, really encourage you to come up with some inputs. And again, I've given you the reason that I want to do this. It's only because if you give the example, then you have a better chance of understanding what the concept that we're discussing. No? Okay. Fine. So I will take the example of in Bangalore, or I mean, even if you go to other cities, there are these sort of places where there are these old restaurants, like really they've been around for 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years, and people who have eaten there as in their younger years continue to go there. Jaideep, do you have one? Yes. Vending machines who lend CD DVDs for $1 in the US. So are you talking about Blockbuster or how Netflix started? I don't really think that's a fitting example for this concept
It is
for
called
cost
like
leadership.
red box or something. Instead of buying a new one daily, we can lend one for $1 maybe for some time for using it and returning it back. So that
Is this
is
something that is still existing? Are you sure?
Yes,
Because
yes, it is.
okay, could be something that I don't know. So I don't know how to apply that concept. I mean that example to this concept. So we were talking about these restaurants in Bangalore, right? I mean, if you go to Mumbai, you'll have a lot of these Parsi cafes. If you go to Tamil Nadu, you'll have a lot of these canteens. Delhi, I'm sure you'll have similar establishments. Kolkata, you'll have similar establishments. Places where really old places. So what happens is even the workers there, there'll be a guy who owns the place, the owner owns the restaurant, and there'll be people working under him, right? So they will join at a young age, and many of them will continue working there for decades, and even up to the point that there's no retirement age in these sort of small hotels. So many of them work there until they can no longer walk, or they can no longer probably their eyesight is failing, or maybe till they pass away, right? So in these sort of companies, they have a very consistent set of policies. When someone leaves an organization, you have to the company has to. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You guys are still
Hello.
able to hear, right?
Yes, sir. In between, it felt like could not hear, but now I can.
Okay, fine. So what are they saying? Yeah, so turnover cost means when a person leaves a company, the company has to spend time and effort into finding a replacement for that person, into training that person to do the same job. And training doesn't mean that immediately from the next day onwards, the person can do the same work that the previous person used to do. There is some sort of a learning curve as well. Then they have to manage the efficiency of the new person. So this all this is it adds to the cost of the company. It's really not adding value to what the company is doing. It's just adding costs. So to reduce that, so the example that I gave of these small restaurants, they will hire people and make sure that they're happy and they're satisfied with whatever they're doing, and they work there for decades together, right? These guys become specialists in whatever they do. So if there's a guy who mixes the batter for parotas or chapati or dosas or idli. So he will do that for decades together. He will just mix the batter. Okay. If there's a guy who cuts the vegetables, then for decades he'll just just cut the vegetables. Very rarely some of these guys will get sort of promoted to some managers or some sort of thing like that. But typically they do the same thing for decades together. They become specialists in what they do. Um, so if you're interested in this sort of concept, there's a movie called Jiro Dreams of Sushi. I'll just type out the name. Usually when I run a strategy workshop, I use a small clip from this. Okay. So Jiro Dreams of Sushi is a documentary about this 80-plus-year-old gentleman in Japan who has a very small, sort of restaurant, and he makes what is considered to be some of the best sushi dishes in the world. So sushi is a Japanese dish where they take fish and they combine it with rice, and it's served on a plate. Okay. And it's eaten with soy sauce. So for those of you interested, I think this whole documentary is available for free on YouTube, and it has subtitles because the entire documentary is in Japanese. And I typically use clips from this documentary to teach the strategy workshops when I create this, when I teach strategy workshops. So it's really a nice documentary of how they're able to maintain their costs, but yet they've become so famous that they're now one of the most highly rated sushi restaurants in the world. Of course, I believe last year the restaurant closed down because they're no longer able to maintain their quality and the number of customers coming to them. So I think they fully closed down. But nonetheless, it's a fascinating sort of documentary which shows how decades together a person and a group of cooks and people who work in the restaurant, all they do is focus on that, right? So their focus is on cost leadership, because when you become a specialist in a certain way, in a certain task, then you tend to do it in quicker and better ways, right? So that also saves cost for the company. Okay, so that is from the HR perspective. Next, look at the let's look at technology development. Easy to use manufacturing technologies, investments in technologies in order to reduce costs associated with the firm's manufacturing processes. So, like I said, if you buy a machine that can run for 20 years, produce high quality, high volume, and have low maintenance, that is much more preferable to a machine that you have to sort of maintain every year and probably replace every few years. Okay, so technology plays a huge part in cost leadership. And last is the procurement. Systems and procedures to find the lowest cost with acceptable quality products to purchase as raw materials, frequent evaluation processes to monitor suppliers' performance. So here it's important what they put in brackets: systems and procedures to find the lowest quality, but always with acceptable quality. Right. So just because you get something at a lower cost doesn't mean that if it doesn't meet your quality standards, then your entire product changes. Right. Um, let's say there's a company that makes and sells wine. The reason they buy wine from a particular place, I mean the grapes from a particular place, is because it offers them a certain quality. If they accepted any grapes from anywhere, their product wouldn't be the same, right? Their product, they differentiate it because it's from a certain place and it meets a certain quality parameter. And going back to Jaideep's earlier comment, I think this answers that: frequent evaluation of processes to monitor supplier performance. So if suppliers are not able to maintain their quality, then these sort of suppliers are let go of. Okay, so I think we've talked quite a bit on cost leadership strategy and how they're associated with value creating activities, both primary activities and as well as secondary activities. Okay. Um, a quick note on how cost leadership relates to the 5 forces. Um, Rivalry against existing competitors. Rivals hesitate to compete on the basis of price. Bargaining powers of buyers and suppliers is low. Potential of new entrants is also low, because if you have a low cost structure, then new entrants cannot easily replicate that. And product substitutes are also fewer. Right? That's about cost leadership. What are the risks of cost leadership? Source of cost advantage becomes obsolete. So at some point or the other, if you buy a certain raw material from someone at a lower cost than your competitors will also go and speak to the same supplier and negotiate a deal that is similar to yours. Right. So at some point or the other, it's not something that you can sustain. They will find a way, either through the same supplier or through a different supplier, to replicate your cost structure. Focus on cost may cause the firm to overlook important customer preferences. Customers may have a certain preference where a higher quality raw material is required, which means that cost leadership can't be offered there. You would have to go for differentiation. In those sort of cases, you cannot look at cost leadership strategies. And the third is imitation. Um, it's cost leadership is basically easy to imitate. right? If you have imitative products, even if they are of a lower quality, then you start losing your cost leadership advantage. So next we come to differentiation. We've talked about the two kind of business level strategies. One is cost leadership, one is differentiation. Um, competitive advantage of differentiation in terms of broad scope. Definition remains the same: an integrated set of actions designed by a firm to produce or deliver goods or service at an acceptable cost that customers perceive as being different in ways that are important to them. With differentiation, you will target customers that perceive product value. You will find customized product differentiating on as many features as possible. Here they give the example of an iPod. So this is sort of an outdated example because honestly nobody uses iPods anymore. Even in 2016 when these slides were created, I don't think anybody uses iPods. But still, so now we come to the second part, which is differentiation, right? Okay. So here we look at how a company that focuses on differentiation typically creates value creating activities. Okay. So inbound logistics, superior handling of incoming raw materials so as to minimize damage and improve the quality of final product. In terms of operations, consistent manufacturing of attractive products, rapid responses to customers' unique manufacturing specifications. In terms of outbound logistics, accurate and responsive order processing procedures, rapid and timely product deliveries to customers. In terms of marketing and sales, extensive granting of credit buying arrangements for customers, extensive personal relationships with buyers and suppliers. In terms of service, extensive buyer training to assure high quality product installations, complete field stocking of replacement parts. So here, anyone want to give any examples of a differentiation strategy? Any product where you feel they use differentiation? Anyone? I find it strange that all of you are sort of reluctant to give examples.
I think granting of credit like local groceries and or milk vendors also give credit sometimes.
No, Jaideep, I'm asking for a industry and a company. Okay, so Lakshmi says McDonald's using wheat bun for burgers. So that's a good example. So let's go with that, right? So first of all, McDonald's, what they're trying to do is they're trying to differentiate themselves from other competitive products by saying that our wheat bun is healthier for you, right? They could say wheat bun is less in sort of calories. It's better in whatever way, right? So what they will do is inbound logistics. They will choose what sort of wheat flour to buy in the first place. They will take a lot of care in preparing these burger buns. And operations, they will have a very standardized way of preparing these buns. They take a lot of care in preparing these buns. Outbound logistics in McDonald's not so much, but they make sure that when they serve it, it looks attractive and highly desirable. In terms of marketing and sales, they'll make sure that advertisements and social media campaigns go up about their new wheat buns. In terms of service, they make sure that customers don't have anything to complain about in terms of these wheat buns, right? So few ways in which McDonald's will achieve their differentiation strategy with their core activities. So great example. Thank you for that, Lakshmi. Next, we come to firm infrastructure, how it's different when a company uses cost leadership versus when a company uses differentiation. So firm structure is highly developed information systems to better understand customers' purchasing preferences. A lot of analysis goes on, a lot of data analysis goes on, a lot of data analysis and analytics goes on to identify customer needs. A company-wide emphasis on importance of producing high-quality products. So if you take the example of, again, what I mentioned in the example, the luxury watch business, they will focus a lot on figuring out what the customers want and trying to influence what the customers want as much as possible. Okay. Next is human resource management, compensation programs intended to encourage worker creativity and productivity. Somewhat extensive use of subjective rather than objective performance measures, superior personal training. Okay, so these are the factors related to HR. In terms of technology, strong capability in basic research, investments in technologies that will allow the firm to produce highly differentiated products. So very often in the luxury watch segment, you'll find that they've come up with a new way to place diamonds inside a watch, or they've included a solar powered watch, or any sort of innovation that comes from the technology part. In terms of procurement, systems and procedures used to find the highest quality raw materials. They won't say, okay, we can't afford this, so we won't. They will find a way to procure that raw material, because eventually it'll end up in their product being different from competitor products. They don't want the raw materials which will be the same as their competitors. They want to differentiate it in some way, which means that if they have to go for the highest quality, they will choose the highest quality. And purchase of highest quality replacement parts. So that's why you will have authorized service people for high-end luxury watches. You can't just have anybody open a luxury watch, things like that. The same thing can be applied to luxury automobiles as well. This is the reason I was asking for examples of what you think differentiation is. So if you can give me examples, we can apply this concept to other companies, other products as well. Anyone want to take any other examples on differentiation? No one? Lakshmi says health-based. Can you expand on that a little bit more, Lakshmi, please? Okay, so that was for the burgers. Okay, fine. All right. Anyone want to give any other examples for differentiation?
Yes, I wanted to say Apple can be say like it has more customer intimacy or something, like, because they created a brand name. So even though there are so many smartphone Android competitors, people will prefer iPhone, Apple iPhone over anything else.
Okay. Good example. Can you expand a little bit more on that?
So like they have created iPhone that Steve Jobs was one of his vision was to create a premium product at a premium price,
Okay.
like that. So that's why they started creating iPhone at affordable prices, and it triggered competition, yes, but they have kept their brand name and still improving further versions of iPhones, and have someone having an iPhone is considered different better than someone having smartphone or Android even today, like that.
Okay. So how do they differentiate? How do you think Apple differentiates their products from their competitors?
It
Like
is a single key, I think.
Sorry?
Single button phone.
Okay. Would it be fair to say that Apple differentiates their products by their design? Do you all agree? If I said that Apple differentiates their products through their design?
Of course, and
Yes, sir,
other
agree.
iPhones are trying to copy, imitate.
Hmm. I would tend to say Apple uses a little bit more of the sort of the integrated approach where they use a little bit of differentiation. I mean, they use a lot of differentiation, but they also use cost leadership because they have their manufacturing done by a company called Foxconn in China, right? That's the only way they can manufacture on that scale. Do you guys
Yes.
agree on that?
Yeah, and technology development also, because innovative leadership there.
Okay, great, good example. Uh, Going a little bit deeper into differentiation with regard to five forces: rivalry against existing competitors. Customers are loyal purchasers of differentiated products. So here they give the example of Bose, but iPhone would be a good example. Um, any other examples where products, I mean, customers are loyal to differentiated products?
Clothing brands like Nike, Puma.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, then coming to bargaining power of buyers or the customers, inverse relationship between loyalty and product. As loyalty increases, price sensitivity decreases. Okay, so let's ignore that example that they've given of Callaway golf clubs, but let's look at that concept of as loyalty increases, price sensitivity decreases. Can any of you think of any examples where um, price, first of all, what does price sensitivity mean? It means that a customer who buys a certain product, if the price changes positively, which means that if the price goes up, then he will have to make a choice whether he wants to buy the product or not. Okay, and if the price increases just a little bit and he says, okay, I won't buy this product, then it means that he's highly sensitive to that price. Okay, if the price goes up by even 10% and he says, no, I still will buy this product, then it means that he is not sensitive to price. And according to this relationship, he is very loyal to that brand or that product. Okay, so we see this in our lives every single day. We see people who will wear only a certain brand of clothing because they are associate, it's become part of their personality. And clothing is clothing. I can wear a t-shirt or I can wear a suit, but I'm still the same person. But what clothing I wear, I feel people feel that it influences how other people see them to a certain extent. So with this in mind, many people are not sensitive to the prices of the clothing that they purchase, as long as they're loyal to a certain brand. Like could be Raymond's, could be Van Heusen, could be whatever, right? So they're loyal to that brand, and they won't think twice to pay an amount even that's maybe 50 times higher. Sorry, not 50 times, 50% higher than something that's a similar product. So you can get like a t-shirt for, let's say, 300 rupees, but just because it has a Nike logo, if they say, okay, this is 800 rupees, there are people willing to buy that, right? They're loyal to that brand, and they're not price sensitive. So bargaining powers of the customers or the buyers in this case, is it high or low? Any answers on this? When a customer is, yeah,
I would say if the customer is refusing after increase in price, then it is high.
no, I'm talking about a case where a customer is loyal to a brand and he's not price sensitive. Is that customer's buying bargaining power high or low?
Low, sir.
Low.
Low. Okay. And why is that? Because the company can increase the price by even up to 10%, 15%, and they will still find a way to go and buy it. So one example I'd like to share. Let me just. We talked about Amazon Basics, right? How many of you have heard of this brand called Supreme? Oh, this is a different Supreme.
Seen more of sneakers and bags, apparels that way.
Yeah, I can't really find their website, but this is their logo, right? How many of you heard of this brand called Supreme? I don't think it's sold in India. I definitely don't own anything by this company, but I know about it because I read about strategy and what products are there in the market. Are any of you familiar with this?
Sir, I've seen few sneaker collections of theirs, but
You've
not
seen
sold in
sneaker
India.
collections, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Have any of you seen this image? So someone, I mean, the company made a red clay brick. It just had the Supreme branding on it, and it sold for $1,000. Right? Very interesting sort of case study that if you're interested in strategy, you should keep an eye out for these sort of things. They made a clay brick with Supreme branding on it, and it was bought and then sold on eBay for $1,000. Right? That's the kind of loyalty that companies dream about building. Okay. In our own way, each of us is loyal to some brand. So any if you want to share your brand preferences, any if you're loyal to any particular brand, and if you care to share.
Toothbrush I buy of Colgate only.
Okay.
So even if price increases or it is not available in a particular shop, then I will try to ask and go to another shop and search other than buying some other toothpaste, taking the risk.
Right. So I want to relate this concept back to have we talked about switching costs? Jaideep, Amol. Any of you, if you can tell me if you've talked about switching costs, if you can recall.
Don't remember, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, so switching cost is basically for your, let's say you are a company, and for your customer to buy a substitute product, right? What would it cost for them to switch? So Jaideep just said that even if I don't find it in one shop, I will go to another shop and buy it, right? So the switching cost for him is quite high. Like if he had to be forced to use a different brand of toothpaste, he will eventually. But for him, the switching cost is high. For him, it's a lot of time and effort for him to switch to a different brand of toothpaste, right? Um, can any of you give me an example where switching cost is low? Like if you don't get brand A, you're okay with buying brand B. That would be a case where switching cost is low. So for many people, if they're used to eating Maggie, and one particular day, what happened was, Maggie was banned, right? There was a huge issue, and they couldn't find Maggie anywhere. So did all of them stop eating noodles? They didn't, right? They were the switching cost was fairly low. Uh, the next time they went to the supermarket or the store, what they did was they say, okay, if Maggie is not there, give me top ramen, right? So people will still continue to eat noodles because the switching cost is low. Okay, fine. So we were talking about bargaining power of buyers. So in this case, if loyalty is high, then the bargaining power of buyers or customers is low. Bargaining power of suppliers provide high quality components, driving up firms' costs. Uh, Cost may be passed on to customer. So here, the bargaining power of suppliers, do you think it's high or low? Anyone? Okay, quite class. Okay, so here the bargaining power of suppliers would be high because they're providing high quality components, and if a company can't procure components from them, very specialized components or raw material, then it's difficult to manufacture their end product. So the bargaining power of suppliers tends to be high. Um, Potential entrants, substantial barriers, and would require significant resource investment. So, like you will see in your assignment, it's not easy for a company to enter the luxury watch business. There are substantial barriers because you have to invest in the machinery, you have to invest in the highly trained technicians, you have to invest in building a brand, you have to invest in marketing, you have to invest in sales. So the entry barriers tend to be high. Okay. Product substitutes for products that are differentiated tend to be few. Customer loyalty effectively positions firm against product substitutes. So, like Jaideep said, for him, the product substitutes for Colgate toothpaste are very few. If he's forced to use, he might shift to a different brand. But left to himself, if he goes to supermarket and he sees Colgate and another brand, he will pick up Colgate, even though another brand can work equally as well. He is loyal to Colgate, and for him there are no substitutes to that product. Okay, that's about differentiation. Um, we're at about 25 out of the 33 slides. Let's see what else is left. Okay, so I think I want to end it here. I want to end the class here. One, because next we'll go into buyer groups, product line segments, and geographic markets. These sort of focus strategies. I don't think I'll be able to cover this topic in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So let's end the class here. And so from next time onwards, I think if there's an afternoon session, it starts at 1:30. Because this time I was not aware that there was an email sent out saying the class starts at 1:45. So if it starts at 1:45, please send a message on the group, and please let me know if, or if one of you can call me and tell me that the class starts later, then please let me know that. All right.
Sure, sir.
Otherwise,
We'll let you know.
there we will end our class here. So fairly quiet class today. I'd really like more of you to participate in our class. Come up with examples. Unless you're doing something else, I'd want you to participate and contribute to the class, because that's really how you will learn, and that's really how all of us will learn from this class as well. But otherwise, I'm available on email and phone if you have any questions regarding the assignment. If you have more than 2 questions about the assignment, then please send me an email on that, and I will respond to you. If it's some small questions, then feel free to send me a message on WhatsApp, and I can probably reply to that, probably on the group. But otherwise, I think it's an interesting assignment. Please read through it. It's a nice case. I've written the case myself. Of course, I've had to change a lot of names, but I think it's an interesting case. So please read through it. If you have any questions, let me know. Deadline would be 23rd to submit the assignment. So that's all from my side. If there's anything, let me know. And otherwise, stay safe, and thank you all.
Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Same to you. Thank you.